Hi guys, how are
Everything.
you?
We're great. How
Hello.
are you?
Doing great. So one of the things that fascinated me so much about the space race is like I'm a big space person. Like I have an astronaut tattooed on my arm. Like I love the idea of space exploration, but I also love hearing stories that like we aren't taught in school that we don't necessarily hear that often. And so for you guys getting to be not only part of this history, but also part of like the telling of this story to generations that didn't get to learn about it, what was the joy of getting to be a part of the space race and tell this history and tell your story for an audience to finally get to hear it?
You go ahead, Ed.
Thanks for the question. Uh, the whole idea, there were a lot of people attempts at telling my story over these last 30, 40 years. People will come along and they say, and I want to do a story on you about space, yada, yada. And it didn't get national attention. I mean, it was all localized. But here, when Leland came along with the idea of this movie, I initially had my doubts, to be totally candid, because I assumed it was going to be another podcast by another journalist with no connection, no ties, no power. And then when I saw the movie, it just absolutely blew my mind because it was one of the most well done. It was fair. It wasn't tilted. There was it painted me in the right light because there are so many other things with this where they get the stories about I got this and I got this what bad thing happened to me and that bad thing happened to me, and the story of was brought to the public in such a way that it was noble, it was dignified, and it was told in a framework that allowed me some real strong uh, bust my buttons pride at near the end of my life here as well, so I could see it and on the big screen and very well done. So that's my contribution to the movie about what it did and how it affected my life.
And I think that, what the way that Diego and Lisa, the producers of the movie, framed this is to have the cultural aspects, the music, the language use, Sun Ra, Earth, Wind, and Fire, all of these cultural icons that people in the community hear and know. And
Mhm.
then we're weaving this part into the movie that just draws them in even more. And then, Diego with Tamayo Mendez from Cuba, the first person of African descent to fly in space on a Soyuz. So I think, it's not just the story, it was all the cultural flavor and references and things too that help contribute to the story.
Yeah, and I do, like I said, I was like, it's highlighted very clearly in the trailer, which I loved, but it was like having Nichelle Nichols, like the clip of her talking about NASA, for me as like a Star Trek fan who like one of the things I loved is like seeing a future where everyone is in space. That when I was like, oh, I forgot that that was a thing. That's so
Right,
cool to like
right.
have that, but also still be telling the story of like real men of color who did this, and we're kind of on the back burner, not knowing it. Bringing, like you said, those cultural elements and also like the little history that people did know with like the Nichelle Nichols thing. What for you was the fun of like getting to see all of that come to life in a movie that is still about like this history?
Yeah, I think the most incredible, the two pieces that were really impactful for me was, setting up the story about all of us coming together to support Victor in space during, the deliberations of Derek Chauvin with George, the person who killed George Floyd, and just being there for him and the way he responded to us rallying around him with his four daughters and wife and family to know that we have his back. And then at the end, when Victor connected with Ed, to show Jessica in space and just thank you for remembering me. I mean, the tears flowed right there when you said that, man. You had me, man. You had me. But and just the way that Jessica was so honored to be in the presence
right,
of Ed Dwight. You know, it was just such a touching moment. So and there are a lot of moments. I mean, you know, Charlie with the peril we'll lose if we don't know our history, and there's so many pieces, but it was just woven so beautifully with all the, you know, science fiction. Octavia Butler, you know, you have to write yourself into history. You know, you can't just sit by the sidelines. You got to write your own history book if you need to. And that's exactly what Ed did in his sculptures.
Hmm.
He wrote a history book around the country, really around the world, for Black history. And they're not going anywhere. They're still,
Hmm.
now they're bronze, right, Ed? Bronze and steel, and so they're
right,
there permanently. They're not
right,
going anywhere, for
right.
everyone to see,
Yeah.
everyone to see.
Yeah, and Ed, it is like you said, you do have moments that just are going to make everyone cry when they get to watch it because it is also very inspirational to see it that it's like this story is finally getting told after all of these years and like we're all going to now for always and forever be like, yes, Ed Dwight ruled. He was one of the best. For you though, like getting to go on this journey and like tell your own story without, someone else in the background kind of dictating it. What was that like for you to get to be the one that is taking us on this journey?
Well, it was kind of mind-boggling, and it was a surprise. I agree because when people are filming, you can't project about
Mhm.
what they're going to do with your story, your life, your impact, because in essence you're putting your reputation of life in their hands. It's really, it sounds over dramatic, but it's not. And it was, what are these guys going to do, and how are they going to treat it? And lo and behold, it was so well done with such dignity, and it allowed me to go to my resting place in the sky later. That somebody saw something that allowed me to do it with a little dignity.
But Ed, not just dignity, but to put it all together in one document, you know, because there are bits and pieces out there, but to have
Right.
it all in one place is so
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah. 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 I, I totally agree with that. I totally agree with that. But that was unexpected. My
Mhm.
expectations weren't very high until I saw the movie and saw me in action on a great big screen. What what the heck's going on here, man? There are things that fleet through your mind. God, I really hope a lot of people see this. Uh,
But
so
yeah,
I was really proud of it. Make a long story short.
well, I was gonna say, I was like, my last question was going to be like, I hope a lot of people do get to see it. And for you guys, what do you hope they take away when they get to watch the space race and learn about Ed and see like this history that has been like quote unquote hidden for all of these years from us?
Is that for me?
It's for both of you guys, but if you want to start, Ed.
Uh, well, no, it tells me, if I saw that movie and I wasn't me in the movie, I'm just looking at this movie objectively. It's a story about stick-to-itiveness, uh, uh, for love, because there's a lot of love all through this whole thing,
Mhm.
through all the even early parts of what I was doing at Test Pilot School. I mean, I never allowed that love thing to get away from me. A lot of people, but all the things that I got out of it, I hope that the kids can see, if that guy can do it with what he was faced with, I can do it. And I can do
Right.
it well, and I can prepare myself like he did, and do the kind of things that he did in order to be successful at what he's, at the end result. Because people don't understand, how can you be a science guy, a nerd, and all that kind of stuff, yet still go out and make art? And the message there is that you can do anything you want to prepare yourself to do, and that's exactly what happened to me. I had to transition from being a science guy to an art guy, and those two things are not so divided as you would think. To be totally candid.
Hmm. I, I, I want to echo what Ed said, but I think it's how you show. You talked about love, Ed, but
Yeah.
it's also about humility and living a life with dignity and grace. And when you pivoted, you brought in so many more people into understanding what it means to go from being enslaved to an astronaut in Texas, right? With dignity, with grace, with perseverance, with resilience, with all the things that when you learn about Harriet Tubman, you wove into a lot of your sculptures because it was this journey having to, go through all kinds of odds and things, but you did it with love, with empathy, with dignity, and with grace.
I 100% agree. Thank you guys so much for talking with me today. I really appreciate it, and I can't wait for people to get to see the space race.
Thank you, Rachel.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.